Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be creating 3 different looks with the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Okay, so for the first look, I think I want to play with Plantasia. I wanted to do that in my initial review, but I figured it would be too typical of me. So that's what I'm gonna do today. So I'm gonna start, I think, with Valley and use this one as my transition. I feel like aside from Elysian, a lot of the looks I'm gonna create are gonna end up looking a little bit similar. That's the only thing. I do want to attempt something with that bright yellow shade. I just don't know exactly what it is going to be yet. So that's why I haven't done anything with that one just yet. I think from there I'm just gonna grab Flax. Now I'm gonna grab Plantasia with a finger, and this color actually surprises me with the way that it actually pulls more green as well. I'm still thinking it's a beautiful palette. I've been absolutely loving it. Same thing on this side. Okay, let me pop off camera, I'll pop on some mascara, and I'll be right back to show you the final look. Alright, so here is the finished first look. Again, very simple, only 3 shades, but that is what most of my eyeshadow looks are. They are usually about 3 shades. So this is pretty typical for me, but overall, I really like this look. Let's get into look number 2. All right, so I am back for the second look with the Yucca palette. I do already have mascara on because I was out and about doing some other things earlier, but I still really wanted to create a look for this one. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with Citrine. I don't think I've used this one yet. And this one is going to go very lightly in the crease. I don't normally play with yellow tones, so it makes me a little bit nervous, but one thing I am noticing with this palette as I've been playing with it and trying to think up different looks to film is I feel like most of the looks end up coming out very similar. So I'm just really not sure if people are going to love that. However, this is not the first palette from Natasha that ends up that way. The bronze palette is very similar. Okay, now I'm gonna grab a little bit of Acacia, and I'm gonna use that one to deepen the outer corner and the crease. I do just absolutely love how well her shadows blend though. I feel like her shadows can make anybody feel like an artist. Okay, and because I literally have not played with this shade yet, I'm gonna go into Willow for the outer corner. Willow's a really pretty shade. I feel like this one, maybe a little bit deeper, but this one would have been great in the Retro Glam palette because I felt like we were really missing a matte, deeper green in there. I mean, ideally we would have one even deeper than this one, but this is really pretty. Next, I'm gonna take Kohlrabi on a finger, and that is going to be the main lid shade. This probably is my favorite shade of the whole palette. It is just so beautiful, so sparkly. I absolutely love this shade so much. Okay, and for the sake of testing out all of these shades, I am gonna take Camu Camu, and that's gonna be on the inner corner. I'm not sure that I really like that, but I did want to at least do it. All right, and that is look number 2 with the Yucca palette. I just absolutely love this one. This one I look so much more than look number 1. I'm really trying to figure out what I want to do for look number 3. I think I want to play with Micaiah a little bit more, but I also really want to get into these oranges. But I'm thinking pairing these oranges with Plantasia would be really nice. Yeah, we'll see. I know I already used Elysian in my original review, but yeah, I would like to use these two a little bit more because I feel like I've used everything else. But that is it for look number 2. let's get into look number 3. Okay, so welcome to the third and final look. So far, I have played with almost every single shade in the palette. The only ones I really haven't are Fuchsia and Ixia. So I do kind of want to play with those today, as well as Plantasia. I am really curious because a lot of these have all been pulling green. I really want to know, can Plantasia also pull more peachy golden as opposed to just green? I want to see that. In my initial review, I played with Elysian. I got to play with Micaiah and Ray. So I think the only thing left for me to do is to play with these two and Plantasia. So let's just hop right into it. I think what I want to try to do is I'd like to take Fuchsia, and I want to take this one in the crease. It is a cream to powder formula. I think what I might want to try to do with this shade is actually to just bring it all over the lid. I want to blend it up into the crease, but I want to bring it all over the lid as well. I think it will help give Plantasia that more peachy effect. This shade actually is much more of like a mustard yellow. So it's not a shade I would typically use very often. All right, from there, I'm gonna take Ixia and I'm gonna use this as my deepening shade. I was thinking of doing a halo eye today, but I think I will just do my usual kind of look. This shade is really, really pretty for that outer corner. And just bringing it up a little bit higher as well. All right, I feel like that blend turned out really well. Just grabbing a smaller brush, and I am going to use Valley to deepen that outer corner even more. Not a lot, because Valley does have a certain green undertone to it, but I just want to kind of neutralize the orange just a little bit. Okay, we are finally going back in with Plantasia. I'm just taking this one on a finger and all over the lid, on the inner corner. Okay, I'm thinking that pulls a bit more gold than anything. Okay, so I think with the more orangey tones as a base, I do think it's pulling more gold than anything. Okay, let me pop off camera. I will pop on some mascara and I'll be right back to share my final thoughts. All right, so here is the final look, and first impression, it looks exactly like the first look I created. I do think Plantasia ends up pulling a little bit more gold with these undertones, but overall it looks very similar to the first one. I did end up using the shade Flax to try to create sort of an eyeliner kind of moment, but overall this looks very, very similar to the first look. So let's get into my final thoughts after doing my initial review in 2 looks and now 3 separate looks. So I think with this palette, you really have to like yellows and greens. If you don't like those, I do not think this palette is going to be for you. Now that I've officially played with every shade in here, I still think the palette is absolutely beautiful. I think the quality is phenomenal. I think it is absolutely her typical amazing formula. I think her sparkling foiled shades in here, which are Plantasia, Komorebi, Micaiah, I think Elysian as well. Those shades are so incredibly sparkly and beautiful, and I think she did such a great job with that formula. In particular, Komorebi is one of my very, very favorite shades. I did use Elysian during my initial review of the palette, and I will say I still don't fully understand where it really fits in with the palette. I think with my initial look, I used Valley, Flax, and then Elysian, and I think that that is the only way that I can see for myself that it really fits into the palette. Otherwise, I really don't know how Elysian fits. It's like this cool toned gray in amongst all of these greens and yellows. So to me, that's just a little bit odd. I will say the mattes in here are incredibly blendable. It really isn't as many cream to powders as she normally has. There is only 2. Calathea and Fuchsia are the only creamed powders in here. So if you're not a big fan of that formula, you might actually enjoy this palette as well. Again, assuming you love greens and yellows. So Plantasia is a duochrome that is very greeny kind of peach. It looks very peach in the palette, but if you mix it with the matte greens, it can pull very, very green. If you mix it with, say Fuchsia and Ixia like I did today, it does pull a more solid gold. I don't actually know how to make it just pull peach. So there is that. Komorebi is the most beautiful, beautiful, shiny foiled green. This has to be my favorite green of all time. Micaiah is also really beautiful. Also just very, very beautiful and reflective. Ray is a regular metallic and it ends up being a little bit lackluster when compared to a lot of the other shades in the palette just because it's a basic metallic compared to these gorgeous foiled shades. But otherwise it's still very beautiful. Camu Camu is absolutely not going to be one of my most used shades in the palette at all. I just don't typically put a bright neon yellow on my eyes, but overall I do think the palette is beautiful, but I would just say to be warned that much like the bronze palette from Natasha, a lot of the looks are going to come out looking fairly similar. You can get them to pull a little bit more golden, but for the most part they're going to be very, very green unless you play with Elysian. Overall, I'm still really loving this palette. It does push me a little bit outside my comfort zone. I do think the shimmers in here are some of the best shimmers she's ever done. But that is it for me today. Let me know down below if you're planning to pick this one up. Did you already? Have you been able to create any unique looks with this one? Let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. And that is it for me today. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!